Oh man, I lost to Ashley at Fantasy this week and we made a deal that whoever loses has to cook dinner. I have no idea how to cook. I don't know what to do.
I might have something for you. Have you tried HelloFresh?
What's that?
HelloFresh has you covered with everything you need delivered right to your door, so you can meal plan with peace of mind. HelloFresh has loads of different meals to choose from, so you're definitely not left short of options. Cook delicious and healthy meals in less than 20 minutes, as HelloFresh allows you to prepare meals quickly and easily.
Wow, how did you manage that?
Get 50% off your first box and 35% off your next 3. And in addition to that, 3 free gifts using our code TottenhamTV. What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for a Tottenham update. A few bits and pieces to get through today, and let's start off talking about Antonio Conte and a report from David Ornstein today. He says that Conte is very unlikely to sign a new contract anytime soon. He will make a decision closer to the end of the season, maybe even in the summer. Conte wants to see if Spurs have the ability to be competitive and if he'll be backed in the upcoming windows. Antonio Conte's contract expires in the summer of 2023, but Tottenham do have the option to extend his current deal. But let's not kid ourselves, it will be Conte's decision. What do you make out of that?
Yeah, I think it makes complete sense. Conte is always known in the public to kind of put pressure on the boards that he's of the clubs that he's managed. So I think it makes more sense for Conte instead of committing too early, maybe via the world, by the time of the World Cup and things like that, or even in the next month, but to try and put some pressure on the hierarchy to make sure that he's getting what he wants, and maybe later in the season that's maybe a better time to discuss it, because you'll have January and the summer coming up, and you'll have to be convinced by the hierarchy that he definitely is going to have sufficient backing. So I don't think it changes too much. It just adds a bit more anxiety to the fan base, waiting a longer time for that deal to come to fruition. But for me, it kind of makes sense. I always thought it was a bit unlikely he was going to sign a contract in January.
Yeah, it's just the thing is just it gives us a long and anxious wait, and it puts our history, the future of what Spurs are trying to do a bit up in the air a little bit until we know exactly what's going on with him, with Harry Kane, with everything else. So it's slightly worrying for me.
I always thought this was probably going to be the more likely scenario in my opinion.
Yeah,
anyway.
But whether it's more likely or not, it's still worrying. You know what I mean? Because we just don't fully know what's happening and what's going to be in the future.
Yeah, I guess that's true, because you'd rather sign him earlier, but it doesn't surprise me.
Ali Gold also went on to say that Antonio Conte wants his Tottenham players to get as angry as he does when things go against them, and admits the North London club have some transfer decisions to make in the coming windows to decide the speed of their project.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. There are definitely players that we're going to have to take big hits on, and we have to accept that. And if we're going to move forward as a club, and I think that's a lot of the time that's been holding us back. When it comes to the players being as upset as he is, I don't know if that's possible. You know what I mean? Conte gets so upset after every defeat, but I guess we need that anger in us that sometimes we don't show.
Yeah, too much nice guys.
Exactly.
Let's move on. Let's talk about some contract situations as well. First of all, with Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, the Times are reporting that Tottenham are ready to offer Hojbjerg an improved contract. The midfielder's current deal runs out until 2025, and he earns around £100,000 per week. And I think it's well deserved, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's performing really well this season, and I think it's that is reward for his improved level performance, especially since Conte's come in as well. He's taken his performances up a level, starting to contribute a bit more offensively, and he's shown with better players around him he can up his level as well. So I'm really happy with how Pierre's performing, and I think that he probably should get an improved contract in line with how his performances are improving.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, what do you think he gets a hike up to? What 150?
Something like that, yeah, 150.
But let's talk about some more contract situations. Next up, Harry Kane. Dan Kilpatrick says that Harry Kane's contract talks with Tottenham will not take place until after the World Cup. The striker is instead focused on finishing the half season and leading England into the World Cup in Qatar. And Harry Kane is one of 3 player contract Spurs I thought to be focused on alongside Hojbjerg and Dier. David Ornstein also chimes in and he says Harry Kane has also had his contract expiring in 2024 and there has been no word of anything regarding that situation. Me personally, I think it's so closely linked with Conte and what he does in his future, and that's why as well we need these things to hurry up and to know exactly what's going to be happening in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I never expected Kane to even think about a contract, even definitely before the World Cup, because I think he definitely wants to be focusing on that, and I don't think, like, who knows what's going to happen at the World Cup and how if it will change things in regards to how he feels about Tottenham, but definitely he's going to wait until the situation with Conte is a bit clearer before he commits his future for sure. He doesn't want to be left in a situation where he was last summer, where he signed a big long deal and the club all of a sudden not heading in the direction that he'd hoped. So. And also it doesn't shock me that we're going to have to wait and see with Kane and his future and see what he does with his contract, because it's a waiting game a bit. I feel.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I feel like if Conte was probably back to the extent that he wanted to be back last summer, that we could have had these contracts maybe tied down already. But it's just a shame that we weren't. We all went into it expecting like a 8 or 9 transfer window, and we ended up with a 5 or 6.
That's how it is at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, look, we need better players. We know that. We need a deeper squad. But look, Conte said we need another 2 transfer windows, and if he's talking like that, hopefully we've got a plan to see how we can move forward.
Let's hope so. Next up, we're going to talk about the January transfer window, and Dan Kilpatrick is saying that Tottenham are ready to back Antonio Conte in the January transfer window. However, to sign players in January, Tottenham will need to first offload players. Spurs face another balancing act in the winter window. Bryan Gil, Japhet Tanganga and Papa Matasar are all surplus to requirements and will be allowed to leave Tottenham on loan in January. Do you think that, I mean, this report was actually before Gil broke in with a few cameos last couple of games. Do you think that's still the case with Bryan Gil?
Probably, to be honest. I know he's played down all right in his cameos, and maybe if he can show a bit more, that won't be the case, but I don't think it's changed too much, in my opinion, probably to how Conte views the situation. What frustrates me is, again, doing this balancing act, have to sell before you buy. It's like Sarr hasn't played a minute. Tanganga hasn't played a minute. So why is there a balancing act in terms of getting them out before we can bring people in? Because these guys are not being used. These guys are not trusted. So if that's the case, then we shouldn't have to, like, I understand if Conte was using them and stuff, so we can't really get rid of them until we can't really replace them until we've got rid of them because they're being used, but they're not being used. So right now they're just holes in the squad. That's what I feel. We're just short of options. Yeah. So it just frustrates me when I hear that kind of sentiment.
It's the same thing every single window. Literally the same thing every window. Spurs are ready to back their manager, but we need to sell before we buy.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating. We need to get the options in and get the full squad. And if we have some fat we need to cut off, then you do it after. But you don't. But this whole waiting, sell before you buy. At the moment, no one's buying, so it's just hurting us. We're just being held back by these players we're not using, and that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, completely agree. Next up, let's talk about Alessandro Bastoni once again. And Dan Kilpatrick says that Antonio Conte remains interested in signing Bastoni for Tottenham. Surprise, surprise. But Romano says that, sorry, Tottenham fans, but I have no news on Bastoni right now. He has a long-term contract with Inter and he will not leave in the January transfer window despite speculation to the contrary.
Yeah, he was only going to leave in January. It's all about the summer if they're going to go. Look, I've heard he's had a mixed time this season, Bastoni for Inter Milan, so he hasn't quite been at his best. I still believe in his quality. He's still young. You got to remember that. He's 22, so he's 22, 23, so the young players can have dips in form, no doubt about it. But I'm got no surprise. It doesn't shock me in the slightest that he's not going to be going in January. Never expected a January move for him, so always going to have to wait till the summer.
Definitely. And last but not least, the FA have fined Tottenham £20,000 for failing to control their players against Newcastle with that brawl you saw. Obviously, Antonio, did he get sent off that game? No, it wasn't that game, was it?
No, it wasn't that game.
But yeah, basically failed to control their players with that brawl.
Was it when the goal was not chalked off, maybe? I can't remember when that was in the Newcastle game. Was it maybe the foul on Lloris, potentially? Was that when it was? I can't remember.
It was... I can't remember, to be honest.
I can't remember that
but-
Newcastle game brawl, like a significant
But
one.
when I read this report, I had in my mind the stuff that happened at Sporting, not the
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
that
I
happened
think
at
that's what
Newcastle.
happened,
So,
so I
like,
can't
it's a bit strange.
Yeah, I think if people in the comments can remind me, but whatever, doesn't really. It's 20 grand. What is that in football terms?
Yeah.
Nothing. It's like dropping a tenner on the floor, isn't it?
Don't say that to Daniel Levy. He'll definitely be hurt by this.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any thoughts regarding any of the news stories we brought to you today. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.